live television.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd think after this point in time, I'd have it. There we go. It's recording too. You'd think after, like, we've been doing this for how many months now, Megan? I don't know, a few months.
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's been a while though.
Yeah,
In a good way.
Been a long while. So, well, why don't we get started? As others may filter in, and I may, I'll admit them as they come in. Yeah, we got two more folks coming in. And so we do this every week. And for the regulars that are here, thank you for coming back. Megan and I appreciate you taking your valuable time. We talk about account-based marketing topics. This week, we've got a great guest, Dawn Colossi, who's the CMO of Software AG. Before we introduce Dawn, we usually kick things off with our weekly poll, which hopefully you can see presented on your screen here. And this was before the Memorial Day holiday, so I think people were not quite as engaged as perhaps other polls have been. But the question that I was asking was around insights and what types of insights, sales and marketing, like what are you producing to your sales team from a marketing viewpoint? And the spectrum of answers here, high quality, like sales is in love with the insights, so quality insights. And I guess it really depends on how you're defining insights too, right? These polls are so simple that it's difficult to nail down precision. Then I put something here, insights, like we're not producing anything to sales that's of value. And then other in terms of comments. And I don't think we got any comments this week, which is kind of unusual. So it might have been a broad question, or it might have been a situation where marketers are not in the position where they're able to provide insights, or maybe it's not their responsibility. Maybe it's somebody else's. Typically what I'm seeing all sorts of different things on the insights. I was talking to a prospect yesterday who said their insights consisted of clicks and opens, which I kind of winced a little bit, actually winced a lot, because, a bot could trigger that and a salesperson probably isn't going to get a ton of value out of that. But where a salesperson might get value is if you could produce some either research based on the accounts that are being targeted for ABM, or perhaps if if that account is in market or not in market. And Dawn, I know you've got experience there with intent data and things like that. But there are probably degrees of insights. But I don't know, Megan, do you have any thoughts on this poll?
What I'm hearing is it's, partly about, are we sending the right information? But I guess what I'm hearing more as a challenge is how to help sellers know what the heck to do with it, right? To deliver it in a way that they can actually get value from it and know then what action to take as a result of what they've seen. So I would say it's almost the insights are one thing, but the what now is probably the bigger thing that I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense about the how do you operationalize the insights and how do you
That's it. It's the so what, I think, and especially if you're delivering tons of information in a sort of hard to digest format, or it's not being delivered in a place that sales goes regularly, then you're really in trouble.
And if you're not consolidating it, right? Yeah. We all have invested into sort of those widgets that show up in Salesforce.com, but they don't know what to do with all those different pieces of information and how that's actionable. So I think it's packaging it up in a way that says, here's an account, here's what they're interested in, and here's probably what the next steps are, which would be attaching to a sales play.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's the key. You just have to be prescriptive, otherwise, it's hit or miss, and we don't want that. Predictability is the key.
It's really challenging. Yeah. And why don't we, I'll introduce Dawn, come off our poll here. And I think we got a couple other people joining us. So Dawn's background, she has been a CMO in a couple different roles for Focus Vision and now most currently Software AG. And Dawn, you're the winner, if I'm not mistaken, of the coveted Serious Decisions ROI Award. I think
am.
Was it a Commvault that you
It was with Commvault, and I think it was 5 or 6 years ago now. I think 2015, so 6 years ago. Yes, for content marketing, and it was groundbreaking back then. Although I'm finding that, although I thought most companies were sort of on the same path, that now that the pandemic forced a lot of companies to do what we did, long ago. So it's been an interesting learning experience.
Well, super excited to have you here. And maybe before I hand things over to Megan, we talk about account-based marketing, and that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. How do you define it, just so we start there, and then we'll kick it over to Megan?
Thank you, because I do find this to be one of those areas, because back in the day, account-based marketing was, 2 or 3 big accounts that sales were sort of those whale accounts, right? And they built a marketing team, sub-marketing team that specifically created marketing programs into those specific accounts. I think ABM is sort of, transformed over the last few years to what is your target account list, right? What target accounts are you going after? And then how can you be more prescriptive with that targeting once you understand who those in market accounts are? There's still a part where sales says, hey, here's our ideal accounts, and it's not 3 or 4 anymore, right? It's a bit bigger. But there has to be data layered on top of that to say, okay, we'll go ahead and target to these accounts and accounts that look like this, right? Because it's very easy to pick out accounts that you recognize the names of. But let us give you some real data back on those that are showing intent signals right now, to sort of be able to predict how much is going to fill our pipeline, because we're going to have to make a decision on, do we need to go beyond this target account list in order to make the numbers that we're all committing to?
Yeah. So, and that is, I think, the thing that a lot of companies struggle with, right? Is that balance of thinking about how many accounts do I need, but then getting too far afield of your ICP too, right?
Right. I mean, there's a difference between that sort of spray and pray mentality that we've all had in the past, and okay, we're going after this type of account that looks like this, right? I think there's a difference between named accounts and target accounts, right? And what they look like and their number. And I believe you should take the named accounts, but you should be adding that to what does our target look like? Because when just the law of numbers doesn't start working out, right? I mean, we know click-through rates are average 1.17. Apply that to 100 accounts, you're not bringing much out at the bottom. So because then of course, you have to get to an engagement rate, right? So 45% of 2 is 1, and then so on and so forth. So it doesn't work out in your demand waterfall if you're not, putting enough on the top of the funnel and working on the pre-funnel. And the pre-funnel could include those target accounts that are named. They're not in market at the moment. But eventually they will be. So looking at that as pre-funnel, and then being realistic about what could be coming into the top of the funnel and moving through, is a really important exercise to go through. We've all made the mistake of saying, okay, I'll just work on the list that I've been given, and then becoming public enemy number 1. You're just not able to contribute enough. So I've learned through the years that while the answer is yes, the next part is but. But let's look at this in a bigger, broader way, because we're not going to reach our goals by just looking at 100 accounts, 500 accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think doing the math, right, and being realistic is kind of the key to, like you said, not becoming public enemy number 1, especially when it's not your fault. Anyhow, so Dawn, you've had the experience of being CMO at several companies, and I know a lot of people right now are making job changes. It's a surprisingly hot job market, right? You would think it's the opposite, but it's not. People are moving around all the time. I would love it if you could just share your advice, kind of when you step into a new CMO role. What are some of the first things you do? What are some of the things you think really set a new marketing leader up for success?
Yes, thank you for this question. I think about this question long and hard each time. And you're right, Megan, just to make a comment on people are changing roles. I actually wrote a blog about it at the beginning of the year. It was crazy how many open CMO positions were coming across my desk. I think we all sort of played musical chairs and are starting to land. So my first and foremost priority when starting a new CMO position is really to get to know the people in the marketing organization. First of all of the people. I'm going through a process now we have about 150 marketers worldwide. including contractors, of meeting each and every one of them. And, there are people getting on the phone saying to me, oh, I've been here 5 years. I've never spoken to the CMO. And I find that surprising and shocking. And the reason why I find that so important is because every company's different, and it's very easy to go in with this is how I do things. Here's my playbook. I'm just going to run my playbook and I know what to do here. But every company has cultural differences. They have expectation differences. There are things that have been tried and have failed. There are things that, and I think one of the worst things a new leader can go in is, I'm here to save the day sort of mentality, because, everybody wakes up every morning and wants to do a good job, right? So anything that hasn't worked or hasn't been able to be pushed forward, there's usually reasons for it. And you want to understand those reasons so that, when you start shaping what a marketing strategy looks like or what you're going to work on, you're prioritizing in areas that are going to make an impact first, because there's always 1,000 things to be done, no matter how good the previous marketing leader was, right? There's always a lot more to be done. And you find that even with your tenure, you're 2-3 years in and you've done a pretty good job of building an operation. But there's always more things that you want to work on and get to. So I find it really important to talk to everyone in marketing to sort of get that point of view and understand. I always make the assumption that it probably, what I'm looking for probably exists somewhere. I'm just might not be asking the right way, or it's just not organized the right way, or not the right way, but the way I'm used to it being organized. So I have to go out and find it, and then come up with what the priorities are that you're going to concentrate on. And part of it is picking one project that, you sort of can test the waters with, right? How does this team work? How do they get behind an initiative? Can you get something off the ground pretty quickly? And that also builds a bit of trust with your peers around you, whether it being sales and finance and the CEO. So, I sort of look for that one project that we can sort of focus on while I'm getting my feet underneath me to really make some significant changes.
No, I think it's great advice, and paying attention to people. And as you said, assuming positive intent, right? Coming in and being respectful of the work that they've done, because people do want to do a good job every day. And I think it is hard when a new leader comes in and seems sort of dismissive of what's happened in the past, because you got a whole team of people who are saying, but wait, this is what I thought I was supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing worse than sitting in that seat and feeling, oh, here we go again. Somebody else who thinks they know better, or even worse, thinking, go ahead, try it. Everybody else has, you're going to fail. Like, you just don't want people believing that are sitting around you. You want people to have hope and be positive. And that comes from, human connections, so, and I've been blessed, I have to say, because of our situation. Everybody, there isn't a headquarters that I'm not sitting in. Everybody's sitting in their own house. So I can converse with everyone just like this, which has been wonderful.
What kind of cultural, I imagine, you're working for a German-based company and you're here in the US, here in New Jersey with me. What kind of cultural things are you noticing as you're going through your conversations, either from a marketing viewpoint or just overall cultural viewpoint, in terms of the differences or the sameness of the people?
Yeah, well, it's day 28. So take whatever I say with the, first impression. So as a marketer and as a East Coaster, always been on the East Coast, although I've worked for a lot of California companies, I tend to move very quickly, right? And I talk very quickly, and I'm really making an effort not to talk so quickly, right? So I do find that, and I know because I've been in a global role, for the past 10 years, that there just needs to be some slowing down. Right. You can't move as fast because there's explanations that have to happen. There's data that has to be presented. And you have to build trust because you're across the pond. It's not like I'm walking over to somebody's desk in headquarters and we've had coffee together and we've built a, friend relationship. you have to work a little bit harder when you're not all sitting in the same place and you haven't had that opportunity to create those human connections to build trust. So you have to sort of slow down and say, okay, I've got to be really intentional about showing what I'm talking about and why I feel this way and what data is backing that up to be able to get buy-in and to get people to trust you, because you sort of miss that nice part of being in the office together. And the German part, I don't know yet. I mean, I know there's different, laws and ways that a German business runs. That, the German Workers' Council is something new, right? In the States, we are employment at will, so it's a different type of. But I nothing that I've had to work through or work with yet.
Well, thinking about, you mentioned sort of building human connections and building rapport and respect, right? Kind of mutual respect and empathy and all those good things that need to be present for productive relationships. I think one of the things that's typically pretty challenging for new marketing leaders, but I would say just for marketers generally, I mean, we still hear this all the time, is the relationship with sales. And how do you work effectively with sales, and how do you help them appreciate the role that marketing can play to help them, right? I would love for you to share any advice that you have on sort of building that bridge with sellers, and even some, sort of actions that you see leading to a really productive outcome and a well-aligned relationship. Really, I know you've done this successfully in the past. I would love for you to share that.
Yeah, I will say it's counterproductive. Not counterintuitive to us as marketers, right? It's about math. And I can tell you, I didn't go into marketing because I'm really good at math or I wanted to do finance. But unfortunately, that's what it comes down to, because to start those conversations with looking at pipeline and, revenue goals, and then, okay, how much, like right now, I have to look very closely at what is the current marketing ROI across the world, right? And how are we measuring that? How are we looking at it? And I know how I traditionally have looked at it in the past few companies, but it's not the way, and that's because I got it there, not because it existed, right? But it's not the way things are being measured now. So again, I can't just go in with my playbook and say, okay, here's how I want to look at things, because that's not how they're pulling data. And so it really comes down to money and numbers as the first conversations, because if you start talking about, like you said, those click-through rates and, creative, I know one of the fears that this executive team had as when I came in was that I was going to do a rebranding, because every CMO comes in and does a rebranding right away. Right.
And a new website. Don't forget the new website.
And the new website. Right. So, and I've lived through it, right? I've lived through CMOs coming in and doing a rebranding. In fact, I said brand on my first executive leadership team meeting in a way that I meant story. And it felt like I threw a bomb in the middle of the room, and I had to back up and say, wait. What I'm talking about is how we tell our story and how we connect to our audience. I'm not talking about the colors we use or the, graphics that we use at all. And I think, marketing has sort of gotten a bad rap for that, because, those are the people that do pretty pictures and throw events. And guess what? You can't throw events right now. And don't talk to me about pictures, because I don't want to talk about pictures. So for me, my wheelhouse has always been demand and digital. So I think it's a little bit easier on those conversations. And I think, I think it's why my interviews go well, because I tend to really focus on the numbers and how that works. And I, they're sort of ingrained in my mind now on what the expectation is and what we should see. So keeping the conversation there, and not in brand, and not in website, and not in SEO and click-throughs, all of that is Greek, and it doesn't mean a thing. It's all around, okay, what can we expect from a pre-funnel? What we should be looking at from a pre-funnel activity, a top of the funnel activity, and an in funnel. And that pre-funnel word is so important, because everybody else calls it brand or awareness or, brand equity. And I'm like, no, it's pre-funnel. It's the accounts we want to get to, because they're going to reach our funnel. It's not, getting to every single account that's in the world, or airport ads or whatever.
When you say that, Dawn, interesting about the focus on the numbers and then on the funnel as well. Are you thinking of this in terms of new logo acquisition or upsell, cross sell? Like, are you being asked to do that in addition to
Oh,
the?
absolutely, absolutely. And I look at that, and you know, as most companies, you know, the SaaS, selling a SaaS in a SaaS model is much different than, you know, the traditional on-prem sale, right? And a lot of companies have both because they traditionally sold, and this is a 50-year-old company I'm working for, right? So they've traditionally sold on-prem solutions, and of course now SaaS solutions, and changing that relationship. Marketing now plays a much bigger role in that SaaS relationship, right? Because you can't expect customer success and sales to be on the phone every single day, but you can certainly engage in a meaningful way through marketing with the right content, with the right, you know, roundtables and executive events and everything, and the right, getting to the right experts in order to really affect that feeling of being connected to, you know, your vendor, and that they're adding value beyond the product that you sold them. So yeah, absolutely. And then pre-funnel, I would absolutely say is new logos, right? You're going after a new audience. You're trying to get a new audience to know who you are and how you're going to bring that through. So your full funnel is a combination of both, but pre-funnel definitely I would define as net new.
Are they starting to use the words, or were they using it before your arrival, like account-based sales or marketing, or are you?
In some regions, mostly in the Americas. But yeah, I think there's definitely an understanding on being focused, right? Focused on which accounts are right for us, and not every account is right for us. So yeah, I think the intention is there, even if the words aren't being used. But we've done a pretty good job as a marketing industry of creating the buzzword so that people sort of say, well, what about that? You know, so yeah, that's it. I think it is a focus for everyone. And I think, you know, as everybody wants to know, you know, how do we do more with what we have? You know, we're not going to get, the truck isn't pulling up with new budget, although that would be nice. You don't even get a honeymoon fund, right? So what more can we do with what we have? And I think that comes, you know, that comes from focus.
Dawn, I'd be interested to hear, you know, I love how you're talking about sort of the role of marketing in a SaaS relationship, right? And the fact that you're doing things to engage customers after they buy. How are you quantifying that? Or how are you representing that in your marketing measurement? That's a question I hear a lot is we appreciate that marketing is doing that work. The hard thing is connecting it back to the math, right? Back to the revenue.
Yeah.
And telling that story. Any suggestions for people on that one?
Absolutely. So we did work when I was at Commvault, so 2 companies ago, a long time ago, and actually what we were trying to prove was that it digitally, you know, what was happening when we can get accounts in a digital way. And we had 2 different analysts come in. Serious Decisions was one of them, and then another outside, I think it was BCG or something. We came in and did some real deep dive analysis on our funnel. And what they found was that if we could get an account to take 3 actions or more in a 90-day period, and they call that, you know, consider that digitally engaged, they were 45% more likely to enter our pipeline. And then, you know, 14% became opportunities, and so on and so forth. So I went and applied that to existing customers. Can I get them digitally engaged, and do they have a higher propensity to stay, right, or to upsell or cross sell? And you know, and then treat it basically, you know, upsell cross sell as a new funnel, right? Can I get them to that new piece? And then engagement counting as, okay, look, when we keep a account engaged, what we see even from the intent data is that they continue to read our content, and not so much of our competitors' content, right? Which is a good sign, because if you look at intent data and your customers are all over your competitors' content, the alarm bell should be going off.
Sure.
And you know, there was a higher propensity for those accounts to stay with us and renew. When we saw accounts that were not engaged, they were more likely to cancel because they weren't finding value behind their product. Sometimes they didn't even install their product, right? They bought shelfware. So marketing has a real key role in sort of that activation piece. Obviously, customer service and your professional services and all of that are key to getting implementation done. But marketing can really help that piece in making sure that the right programs are set up. And then again, measuring it to say, okay, can we get them engaged and using a benchmark on what that engagement is?
Yeah, I love that, the correlation to the outcome you're trying to drive, and sort of saying, hey, we know this is the presence of marketing activity, and even specific marketing activity in combination with the other functions too, is really what tells the story of how you get customers to a point of impact, right? So that they do renew and buy more. I love that you,
and it's not taking credit for it, right? Because you do find these very contentious conversations, which I think are such a waste of time on, well, we already knew them. Great. We're not taking credit for driving it, right? We're saying, okay, if they behave in this way, they have a higher propensity to stay. So let's try to keep them behaving this way, right? Which is important for the sales part of it, to make sure that the right contacts are in Salesforce, so that we're able to engage the entire account in an intelligent way and in a way that helps.
Who knew math would end up being marketing's best friend?
It's kind of a thorn in my side, but it is what it is.
Well, I love the approach of not taking credit. I think that's very savvy on your part to do that. I hadn't thought about that because you're right. That's exactly when you get into the battles of, territorial battles. So
yeah.
Why draw those lines as long as the behavior and outcome,
and as long as you can show, that's why that ROI number is so high, right? Because you can say, okay, if marketing is getting in here, we understand what's going on. That's money well spent. If you take it out and they're not they're not engaging, and we're losing that customer, the customer lifetime value goes down. So then you're having an ROI discussion, not on who drove this and is it marketing driven, is it sales driven? It should just be company driven, and we should all be working together in the same way.
Hey, to close things out, Pam asked a great question. Thanks for this one, Pam. Are you envisioning any aspects of your marketing approach changing as we move into our post-pandemic stage? Anything that you're seeing?
Absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity for live events to really rethink strategy. Before you sort of got caught in this hamster wheel of, we always did these events, and if we pull out, it's going to look like the company's in trouble or the company's going out of business, or there was always this fear of perception of pulling out. And I think, now that we've sort of hit the reset button, we have an opportunity to take a look at that and say, okay, how does in-person fit into our overall strategy? And where will we get the highest impact, rather than just, we need to do 25 different trade shows a year because we always did them. So I know that the trade show companies won't be happy to hear that. But I do think it gives us a very good opportunity to sort of, strategically say, should we be looking at smaller, more intimate type of settings and events that will, really give us an opportunity to build a relationship? And in what places do we need to show up, because it's good for our brand and it's good for our reputation.
Just building on that point, I think Lotnay from Sixth Sense, the CMO of Sixth Sense, is really pushing hard on revisiting the whole need for events. I think she's calling it a bill of rights for events. Marketers that are oftentimes at these events, they're all getting relooked at across the board with a lot of CMOs right now. So that's a great point.
And I think it depends on your audience, right? I think I just saw a study that a lot of us sell to an IT audience. They're not in such a big rush to get back to big events, right? Because they never loved them anyway. And if they found a different way, to socialize, to learn and meet peers, they're going to default to that.
Kind of like what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for being our guest today. And thank you to everyone who joined us too. We're super happy you're here and are sticking with Account-Based Fridays. And I know I learned some good stuff today. John, you want to close us out?
Yeah. So next week, well, first of all, thank you, Dawn, for investing the time here. And this will be recorded, so others will be able to watch it as well, and we'll summarize it. But next week, we've got a special guest, Kathleen Schwab, who was formerly the IDC CMO practice lead. She'll be joining Megan and I, and in her new capacity, and that'll be next Friday. So we'll get back to things. I think we took last week off with the holidays, and we'll be back to our normal normal scheduled time here.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you.